Caligula, Julio-Claudian Dynasty. When Caligula became the third emperor of Rome in 37 AD, the city celebrated. He was the son of Germanicus, one of the most beloved generals Rome had ever produced, and the early months of his reign were described by the historian Philo as genuinely blissful. He canceled treason trials, freed political prisoners, and threw money to the crowds. Then he fell severely ill and something changed. He recovered. Rome did not. The treason trials returned almost immediately. He executed senators on charges so trivial that Suetonius struggled to justify them. He had Tiberius Gemellus, the young grandson of the previous emperor, killed as a potential rival. He executed Macro, the praetorian prefect who had helped him take the throne in the first place. When meat prices rose in Rome, according to ancient sources, he ordered prisoners from the jails to be fed alive to arena animals rather than spend money on animal feed. He made senators run for miles in front of his chariot. He declared himself a living god and announced plans to move the capital to Alexandria. He forced the husbands of women he desired to hand them over on the spot. His 4-year reign compressed cruelty to a speed that still impresses historians. On January 24th, 41 AD, Cassius Chaerea of the Praetorian Guard, whom Caligula had publicly humiliated with degrading passwords, stabbed him more than 30 times beneath a temporary theater near the Palatine Hill. Caligula was 28 years old. His wife and infant daughter were killed the same day. His name was removed from official oaths and dedications, and many of his statues were destroyed, though the new emperor Claudius declined to formally declare damnatio memoriae. The people of Rome, contrary to what the Senate expected, were reportedly furious. Domitian, Flavian dynasty. Domitian was never supposed to be the most important Flavian. His father Vespasian had the title. His brother Titus had the glory of the Colosseum and the eruption of Vesuvius, and Domitian had neither. When Titus died unexpectedly in 81 AD, Domitian inherited the throne and immediately made clear he intended to be taken seriously. He demanded to be addressed in official correspondence as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God. He renamed 2 months of the year after himself. He completed the Great Flavian Palace on Palatine Hill and built a stadium whose outline still shapes Rome's Piazza Navona today. He was competent and he was also dangerous. He executed at least 20 senators, including 3 of his own family members, on charges that ranged from treason to trivial insolence. He had the governor of Britain, Celestius Lucullus, executed for the offense of naming a new cavalry lance after himself. According to Suetonius, one of Domitian's preferred private amusements was stabbing flies with a stylus and then plucking their wings out one by one. He reportedly impregnated his niece Julia Flavia, and she died shortly afterward, a connection noted in ancient sources. His paranoia consumed his inner circle until his chamberlain Parthenius organized a conspiracy together with praetorian officers and his wife Domitia. On September 18th, 96 AD, a freedman named Stephanus, steward to Domitian's exiled niece Domitilla, who had concealed a dagger in a bandaged arm for several days, entered the emperor's chambers and stabbed him. The Senate celebrated openly. Domitian was subjected to damnatio memoriae. Every statue was torn down. Commodus, Nerva Antonine dynasty. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, the author of the Meditations, the most respected ruler in Roman history, spent 16 years carefully preparing his son Commodus to inherit the empire. It did not work. Commodus took sole power in 180 AD and within years had renamed the city of Rome Colonia Commodiana. The colony of Commodus, he renamed himself Hercules Romanus, wore a lion skin cape in public and carried a club. He then began fighting as a gladiator in the Colosseum, an act considered so deeply shameful for a Roman citizen that historians could barely bring themselves to describe it. He always fought against disadvantaged opponents, one-legged veterans, cripples, opponents armed only with sponges. He slaughtered ostriches with crescent-headed arrows, then walked toward the senators present, holding the severed heads and gesturing meaningfully. According to the historian Cassius Dio, he charged the city of Rome 1 million sesterces per arena appearance, billing it as a public service. He executed his sister Lucilla after she organized a failed assassination attempt against him. He renamed all 12 months of the year after his own titles and epithets. His mistress Marcia, his chamberlain Eclectus, and the praetorian prefect Latus eventually concluded he needed to die before he had them killed first. On December 31st, 192 AD, Marcia poisoned his food. The dose was insufficient. His wrestling partner Narcissus was then sent into the bath and strangled him. His death triggered a civil war. The year of the 5 emperors followed. Caracalla, Severan dynasty. Caracalla was never his real name. It was a nickname from a Gallic cloak he liked to wear, meant originally as an insult. He had ruled as co-emperor with his younger brother Geta since their father Septimius Severus died in February 211 AD. The brothers divided the imperial palace in half and attempted to poison each other's food. Their mother Julia Domna organized a reconciliation meeting. On December 26th, 211 AD, Praetorian guards burst into the room and stabbed Geta on Caracalla's orders. Geta died in his mother's arms. The purge that followed killed more than 20,000 people across the empire. According to the historian Cassius Dio, everyone who could be linked to Geta as a supporter, a friend, or an associate, mentioning Geta's name became a crime. His face was scratched from every painting and monument throughout Rome, including from the famous Severintando, a family portrait where his image still shows the deliberate damage today. Caracalla had his own father-in-law executed on fabricated treason charges, then had his wife exiled and killed. In 215 AD, after Alexandrian citizens staged theatrical performances mocking him, he ordered a massacre of the city's population. He was killed on April 8th, 217 AD, while urinating by the roadside near Cari during a military campaign against the Parthians, stabbed by a soldier named Julius Martialis on the orders of his own Praetorian prefect Macrinus, according to the historian Herodian. He was 29 years old. Constantius II, Constantinian Dynasty. When Constantine the Great died on May 22, 337 AD, 3 of his sons and several other male relatives were positioned to inherit power. Within weeks, nearly all of them were dead. Constantius II, the eldest surviving son, either ordered or permitted a massacre that eliminated virtually every male relative who could threaten his brother's division of the empire. 2 of Constantine's brothers, at least 9 cousins, and numerous supporters were killed. The only male relatives spared were Julian and his half-brother Gallus, both young enough to seem unthreatening. As sole emperor from 353 AD, Constantius built a court so thick with informers and eunuch advisors that the historian Ammianus Marcellinus described it as existing in permanent shadow, where a careless remark could end a career or a life. He relied on biased treason trials to remove officials who grew too capable or too independent. He appointed his cousin Gallus as Caesar of the East in 351 AD, then had him arrested and executed without trial in 354 AD when Gallus proved too unpredictable. He attempted to impose a specific theological position, Arianism, on the entire Christian church, exiling bishops who disagreed with the consistency that Ammianus found as disturbing as his other cruelties. He died of fever on November 3, 361 AD, while marching to confront his cousin Julian in a civil war, reportedly receiving baptism on his deathbed. Valentinian I. Valentinian Dynasty. Valentinian I was by most accounts a capable military emperor who genuinely protected the poor from aristocratic abuse and expanded Rome's frontier defenses more effectively than almost any ruler of his era. He was also, according to the historian Ammianus Marcellinus, a man of volcanic and lethal rage. Ammianus records that Valentinian kept 2 large bears in cages positioned near his bedroom, which he named Mica Aurea, meaning gold flake, and Innocentia, meaning innocence. Both animals were fed human victims, people who had displeased the emperor, as a personal indulgence, which Ammianus describes without particular surprise, as though this was simply one of the emperor's habits. Valentinian reportedly had a scribe's hands amputated after a clerical error. He sentenced a man to death for accidentally releasing a bird from a cage during an imperial hunt, a minor mishap that happened to irritate him at the wrong moment. Officers were executed for failures that any other emperor might have dismissed with a reprimand. His anger was his most consistent governing tool. On November 17th, 375 AD, a delegation of Quadi ambassadors arrived to negotiate. Their insolence infuriated him. According to Ammianus, Valentinian grew so enraged while addressing them that a blood vessel burst in his brain. He lost the ability to speak mid-sentence and died shortly afterward. The man who had kept bears to consume his enemies was himself consumed by his own rage at a diplomatic meeting. Honorius, Theodosian Dynasty. Honorius became Western Roman Emperor in 393 AD at the age of 8, and spent the next 30 years demonstrating that the Western Empire could fall without anyone at the top being particularly aware of it. He ruled from Ravenna, a city chosen for its surrounding marshes and defensive difficulty, rather than its proximity to anything that mattered. He had at his disposal one of the finest generals in late Roman history, a half-Vandal soldier named Stilicho, who had spent years holding the Western Empire together against the Visigoths under Alaric. In 408 AD, Honorius had Stilicho executed on treason charges. The main shield between the Visigoths and Rome was gone. On August 24, 410 AD, Alaric's Visigoths sacked Rome for the first time in 800 years. Honorius survived in Ravenna. The historian Procopius, writing about a century later, records a story that when a court official arrived with news that Rome has perished, Honorius cried out in horror. and then discovered the official was referring to the city, not to his pet chicken, which was also named Roma, and which he had been worried about. Whether the story is true or embellished, it has been attached to Honorius for 16 centuries, because it seems to fit. He died of edema in Ravenna on August 15th, 423 AD, having outlived the dignity of everything he was supposed to protect. The Western Roman Empire itself collapsed 53 years after his death. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.